So I'm sure you've already heard this before, but we produce a lot of our neurotransmitters within our gut lining. So, for example, we're able to take tryptophan from our diet and actually convert that to something called 5-HT, which is serotonin. We can also do that with, for example, tyrosine, phenylalanine, tyrosine, and convert that to other neurotransmitters like dopamine, epinephrine, norepinephrine, etc. In this situation, I want to talk about serotonin because often people can experience gut-related symptoms like, for example, constipation and diarrhea. And it's interesting to understand the effects that serotonin might have in our gut when it relates to these sort of symptoms. So let's talk about serotonin in the gut. So as I said, we're able to produce it when we take in those amino acids like tryptophan, and we're able to convert it into our serotonin. What's really interesting about serotonin is that we're able to also do this process via certain bacteria. So for example, these bacteria that live within our gut are able to actually take that tryptophan and convert that to serotonin as well. Now, serotonin in the gut can actually increase motility. It's a very interesting neurotransmitter because it can be associated in the central nervous system, producing both calming and stimulatory effects. So it's a really, really interesting neurotransmitter. But when we have high levels of serotonin in the gut, it's often more associated with speeding up our motility. So that's really interesting to understand. So it makes sense that if we have an overgrowth of certain types of bacteria within our gut, that's often associated with higher production of serotonin and therefore symptoms like, for example, diarrhea. Now, in the opposite way, if we have very low levels of certain gut bacteria, of course, they're going to take less of that tryptophan and convert it to serotonin, producing less motility, which can lead to symptoms of, for example, constipation. So let's talk about some of these bacteria that are often associated with producing more serotonin. These are strains like Streptococcus, Enterococcus, Akkermansia, and I can't pronounce the last one, but it's Escherichia. I can't pronounce it, but I'm sure you've heard of it before. They tend to be able to convert more of this tryptophan to serotonin and lead to, therefore, more production of serotonin in our gut. Now, as I said, that can lead to more of a stimulatory effect of our gut motility. And if they are overgrown, it's interesting to think about the fact that they might be leading to more symptoms of diarrhea. On the opposite end, there are certain bacteria that are going to, halt this production of serotonin more. And those sort of bacteria are Bifidobacterium and Lactobacillus. So I think that's really, really interesting to understand because you can look at somebody's, for example, their stool test or a GR map or something, and you can look at these bacteria, and just because you have these bacteria in your gut doesn't necessarily mean it's going to lead to symptoms. A lot of these bacteria, I'm sure you know of, like the Bifido and the Lacto, are associated with really good gut health. But what I'm seeing is it's when these bacteria are in funny proportions. So, for example, if any of these bacteria are overgrown or, you have too low levels, that's when we start to see some interesting symptoms happening. So, for example, let's say you have an overgrowth of something like Streptococcus. That's when maybe it could be worth looking into, okay, we've got an overgrowth. Could this be what is behind the increased gut motility and the symptoms of diarrhea? I hope you found that really interesting. This is a situation where I think it's really fascinating looking at people's stool tests and things like that, because it can be an interesting way of kind of seeing maybe it's not always the things that we usually associate with constipation and diarrhea. It's maybe not always about, are you eating enough fiber? Because as we can see in people that are eating a very low carb diet or an animal-based diet, often when they eliminate the fiber, it's actually what helps with symptoms. So could it be fiber that's often helping to lead to the overgrowth of certain bacteria? So anyway, just an interesting thought. I hope you found that interesting.